Welcome back to Houston Newsmakers and my very special guest, Dr. Ruth Simmons, former Prairie View A&M president and now the president's distinguished fellow at Rice University. Politics seems to have been playing an large role in influencing education these days, locally, nationally. Your thoughts about efforts across the country we're seeing now that are actually working to help cut back Black history education in schools in general?
Well, what I would say, Khambrel, is that owing to my age, I've been here before. I grew up in a time when African Americans were suppressed in their ability to value themselves, to talk about their history, and so forth. I remember as a child Bull Connor and George Wallace blocking the schoolhouse door. Those memories are firmly imprinted on my mind. And the first thing that I thought about when I began to hear about these efforts was, we're going back to those times. And then the next question is, well, what do we do about it? Mm-hmm. I'm so proud of the fact that although I grew up in that era, I learned over time to be more open-minded, to hear controversial things, to respond to a difference of opinion in a way that was more thoughtful than emotional. Mm. And so what I'm trying to be with regard to these new efforts is to be more thoughtful than emotional. So when it comes to being thoughtful, the first issue is universities are about truth-telling and promoting facts, not foolishness. And so we have an obligation as universities to defend the ability of scholars and others to speak the truth about what has occurred in the past. Mm-hmm. If we don't do that, we become subservient to lies. And who can trust any institution that is subservient to lies? I wouldn't. Mm-hmm. And so our very survival as universities depends on our ability to support the objective presentation of facts. Mm-hmm. And one of the most important aspects of that is the recounting of our history. It's very telling to me that this is occurring at this moment in time. Why is it occurring in this moment in time? Probably because some gains that have been made as a consequence of this truth-telling are offensive to some, because truth isn't always pretty. It isn't always something that has to make us feel good all the time, but it's something that we need to know in order to improve our lives. I have heard yesterday that the foundation of the American democracy is education. I believe that, but it's not false education. It's not education at the hands of the state dictating what people can and cannot know. We become like China. We become like other countries where the state is able to command what you know and what you do.
Speaking of that generally, politics and education in Texas, the Texas Education Agency is now thinking about taking over HISD. Something that happened several years ago. Your alma mater was involved in that. Wheatley's performance was not good. So they talked about taking over. You wrote an opinion piece for the Washington Post a few years ago. I'll talk about that in a second. But you said, my earliest months of life were spent in a cotton sack, dragged along by my parents as they picked cotton in the field of a large East Texas plantation where they toiled as sharecroppers in the 1940s. You left that environment and you went to Houston. You ultimately went to Wheatley High School.
Yes.
Now you see the efforts by the state to try to take over HISD because of a lot of different things. What are you thinking when you hear that happening about what's going on in the state?
Well, first of all, I would not for a moment suggest that people who want better schools are bad people. Okay, but the question is, what is a better school? Non-experts reaching into the schools, trying to determine what to do, that's very flawed. And that's the problem we have at the university level. People who are not educators, who are not scholars, reaching into universities and telling us what we should do. And so that's a formula for disaster. So I guess I would say schools do need to improve. always. But people miss the boat when they look at a place like Wheatley and say it needs to be taken over. To what end? I just met the valedictorian this year for Wheatley. And I look at her and I think, yeah, that's me. That's me when I was graduating from Wheatley. And what would people have said at the time when I was graduating from Wheatley? Oh, she doesn't stand a chance. Oh, poor girl, she's going to be working as a maid, just like everybody else. That's what they would have said about me. So the misinterpretation of what the school environment can do for a child and what it takes in order to produce someone open to learning and open to achievement, that's something that policymakers often don't get.
Dr. Simmons, thank you. We're going to continue this conversation. This is a very special Newsmakers, and there's going to be a very special Newsmakers Extra because we're going to be, by the way, you can find it on Newsmakers Extra on click2houston.com.